Once upon a time, somebody asked me, they're like, hey, you like Van Halen, right? I said, yeah, a little bit. And they said you should rate all the albums and tell which ones are your favorites. Okay. What's up guys, Jake here, and today I'm going to rate every Van Halen album from the Roth and Hagar years. Yes, Roth and Hagar. Maybe we'll even do the Gary Cherone years. Ha, get it? There's only one album. It was a lot funnier in my head. Anyway, real quick before we get started, if you're a new visitor to the channel, do remember to hit that subscribe button. That way you get updated every time I upload a brand new video. Alright, up first, Roth years. Coming in at number 7, you probably guessed it, all the way from 2012, the only Van Halen album to be released while I was alive, A Different Kind of Truth. Definitely not my favorite Van Halen album. I think there's some good songs on here. Blood and Fire is a kick-ass song in my opinion. I still blast that one all the time. The rest of the album's kind of so-so. She's the Woman, I think, is a great single. Tattoo, I never got it. At first, when the album first came out, I thought it was, it's a cool song, but as I've matured, my musical tastes have matured, that song has never quite made sense for me. The music videos were a little strange, but I do think there was some good material on that album. I think the riff to Chinatown's really cool, and like I said, Blood and Fire is just a song worthy of turning the volume all the way to 10, but definitely not my favorite album. Coming in at number 6, this is where people might start to throw tomatoes at me. 1984. Now there's no doubt 1984 really kicked Van Halen to number 1 with Jump in Panama, which are great songs, and Drop Dead Legs, of course, where he was playing in Drop D. Everything else in this album, though, I've just never been a huge fan of. I really respect the hits. I still love Panama, still love Jump, but I don't know. I think you could kind of hear the Roth song starting to die out in this album. So again, it's not one of my favorites. I still really, really respect it. I still listen to it quite often, but it is towards the end of my favorite albums of the Roth years. Number 5, Diver Down, or the cover album. I actually really, really like this album. I think for Van Halen fans, a lot of times this album gets ranked last, but I really dig it. I think the cover tunes are cool, but I think what's even more underappreciated on this album is the originals. The Full Bug is a phenomenal riff and a phenomenal song, in my opinion. You can't listen to this album without just your jaw dropping at Cathedral. I mean, it's just such an interesting technique that Eddie's starting to use that it just is so different from anything he's ever done. And last thing to mention on that one, Little Guitars, I think is just such a classic and cool summertime song. So it comes in 3rd for my favorite on the Roth years, but I definitely think it holds the Van Halen name. Number 4, Women and Children First. This album is just so raw and so raunchy sounding. I just really, really love it. Everybody Wants Some and The Cradle Will Rock. Those are just bangers, especially in The Cradle Will Rock. What most people don't even realize is he wasn't using a guitar to get that flanger riff. He was putting his MXR flanger through a keyboard. Who thinks of stuff like that and then puts it on an album? But it works for the song, and I think it's super cool. Number 3, Fair Warning. Fair Warning. Really like this album. This album, again, is really raunchy, really dark sounding. Hear About It Later just sounds so angry, but in a positive way. You can't underestimate Unchained, and I think that's the most iconic use of Eddie's flanger. And of course, the famous intro to Mean Street. Just that tapping technique, I would love to sit down with the guy and be like, how the hell did you come up with that? I think it's super cool. This album I listen to all the time. I think the album artwork is super interesting. Just an all-around super great album. Number 2, sorry guys, Van Halen One. Van Halen One always gets the number 1 spot, but for good reason. But there's another album that I think is just a little bit better that we'll talk about in a second. Van Halen 1 all the way from 78. I mean, you can't underestimate. This was a game-changing album for the music industry. I mean, just that intro horn on Running with the Devil, like, that just gets you pumped up, and the album stays so strong. I once gave this album to somebody for them to listen to. They had never listened to Van Halen 1 all the way through. And what they told me, and what I thought was so cool, was I recognized every single song on that album. What other album from any band can you say that about? That they'll recognize every song? Even the deep cuts like On Fire, he's like, yeah, I've heard that before. And it's just such a phenomenal, well-rounded album. You have Eruption, where Eddie just takes over the guitar world. You have the fun cover of You Really Got Me and Ice Cream Man, and you can't beat the riff to Feel Your Love Tonight. Number 1 for the Roth years, Van Halen 2. This is like one of my number 1 feel-good albums. I always describe this album to people as you're on your way to the beach and you have about 45 minutes to get there. Blast this album. It puts you in such a good mood. I love everything about this album. I love how it just starts out kind of mild with the cover of You're No Good and then just goes into fun summertime songs. You got DOA, Dance the Night Away, Beautiful Girls, Somebody Get Me a Doctor, and my all-time favorite song on the album, Women in Love. And even the songs I didn't mention just kick ass. All the deep cuts, all the hits, I think it just goes with a perfect flow, and that is by far my favorite Roth years album. Let's transition. Can't beat the Sammy years. Anybody that watches my channel or knows me personally knows the Sammy Hagar era Van Halen is by far my favorite band. I love all 4 albums they did, and it was super hard to rank these, especially because there's only 4. Now, let's just start off with number 4, and the only reason this album is number 4 is because another album on this list is always ranked last, and I wanted to be different. Number 4, OU812. By God, I love this album, though. I think it's so different from 5150 and so different from the album after it, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. I think it just fits in such an interesting spot. I mean, it covers more serious topics. They're doing some love songs. You got When It's Love on there. You've got Feels So Good. But you've also got more upbeat fun songs like Finish What You Started. And you got some really weird guitar stuff going on with Mine Oh Mine. And I think it's just such a solid album all the way through. Number 3 in the album that's always ranked last, and I just didn't want to do that because I think this album goes much deeper than most people realize. Balance. This is the last album from the Hagar years. It was released in '95. I think this is just a magnificent album. It goes into deeper topics, just starting off with the Seventh Seal. It goes into some religious aspects. It goes into some much deeper love songs than they've done before. You know, with Not Enough and Can't Stop Loving You, they just really started to explore much deeper topics. And I love Eddie's tone on this album. There's one album I love his tone a lot better. I bet you know what it is. But I think the tone on this album is just so fantastic. And all the way throughout, I think the album is really, really solid. I think you have fun, upbeat stuff like Big Fat Money. You've got a kick-ass instrumental with Beluchatherium. And something about that instrumental, he's not shredding, he's not going crazy, but that riff just hits just right. So there you have it, Balance at number 3. Number 2, 5150, the first album from the Hagar years. This to me is basically Van Halen 1 with a different singer. This album I have always loved so much. The flow is fantastic, it's fun, it's upbeat. The love songs aren't sad, they're still like songs you can listen to while driving and not get all depressed. Like, why can't this be love? I think as time goes on, more and more people hear Why Can't This Be Love, and it just becomes annoying because it's such a song that's played on the radio so often. But if you really listen to that song, you can't listen to it without appreciating what they did. You gotta remember, the album before this was 1984. They tried a love song on it, but didn't really do that well. But this was a whole nother direction. I still love the story Sammy tells where their producer heard this and was like, oh my god, okay, this is a good idea. Get Sammy in the band. That's so interesting, and then it became a massive mainstream hit. My favorite song on the album is Best of Both Worlds Out. It's fun, kick-ass guitar solo. Their live version is one of my favorite things ever. It's just a fantastic album all the way through. And you got Summer Nights on there. It's almost like a country song, but it works for that album and what they're doing. Number 1, favorite Van Halen album, favorite Hagar album, favorite album of all time. For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Get it? That is by far my favorite album of all time. I think Eddie's tone on this album, God, I wish I could recreate that. Oh man, it's processed, sure, but I just love it. I love over-processed guitars. Sorry. This album just starts strong with the massive hit Pound Cake. You got Judgment Day, which I love that song. It's like, pissed off, don't tell me what to do. You got the massive mainstream hit Right Now, which is just about doing stuff in the moment. Don't wait till tomorrow. Why would you wait till tomorrow when you don't know if tomorrow's going to be there? It's kind of like scary, a little bit like, tomorrow might not be here. Do it today. I think that really hits home when you really listen to the song. And just throughout the entire album, I love it. I love the instrumental 316 too. Very soft, named after, of course, Wolfgang Van Halen's birthday, and then it leads into my favorite song on the album, Top of the World. I love happy, upbeat music. What can I say? And that song, I don't care how pissed, how sad, how whatever you are, that song, I think, puts everybody in just a great mood. It fits perfect, killer riff, the verses, chorus, I just love it. Love that song. I could listen to it all day long and not get sick of it. Alright guys, that is how I stack up every Van Halen studio album. I tried to keep my responses short because I could probably make this video about a week long just because I've listened to every single album so many times and I could go into each and every song, but you guys wouldn't keep watching it that long. So it was kind of fun to take the albums and rank them. It was really hard though. I thought I knew which ones are my favorites, but here we are. I always knew For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge and 5150 were my favorite from the Hagar years, and I always knew that Van Halen 1 and Van Halen 2 are my favorite from the Roth years, but ranking everything in between was really hard, and it was kind of fun to do and really interesting to rip apart. So guys, that's pretty much going to sum it up for this video. Real quick, before we tune out, I just want to note that my merch line is now open. If you want to check that out, the link is down in the description. All proceeds go back into directly supporting the channel. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, throw a thumbs up on this video, and any comments, throw them down below. See you guys later.